It is an insult to me that you do not speak Arabic. This is an Arabic company. We should speak Arabic.
A crucial negotiation collapses as the translator vanishes. The CEO's future hangs by a thread against an angry sheikh. 6-year-old Lily, the janitor's child, speaks perfect Arabic. She becomes the bridge, proving genius has no dress code. The 35th floor of the sleek glass skyscraper glowed in the late Sunday sun. Inside the main boardroom, a thick, uncomfortable tension hung in the air, practically buzzing as Eleanor Vance faced what felt like the most crucial negotiation of her entire career. Across the vast mahogany table, Sheikh Tariq Almas spoke quickly and loudly in Arabic, his voice sharp with clear frustration. The professional translator had vanished an hour earlier without a single warning, leaving Eleanor's team completely unable to communicate. Tariq stood up from his chair, obviously preparing to walk out. In the quiet hallway outside, 6-year-old Lily Ramirez sat on a cushioned bench reading a thick book, while her father, Marco, worked nearby, scrubbing the marble floor. The intense, fast Arabic drifting through the closed door made Lily look up, her curiosity winning out. She quietly walked into the room and spoke, her perfect ringing Arabic stopping everyone mid-motion. Marco Ramirez had been cleaning office buildings for 7 long years, ever since his wife, Isabella, had died from cancer. At 35, his hands were tough and calloused from honest labor, and his back was slightly bowed from countless hours of mopping and hauling heavy trash bins. But when he looked at his daughter, Lily, none of that exhaustion mattered. She was his entire world. She was the reason he dragged himself out of bed at 4 a.m. every morning. She was his absolute motivation for taking on every extra weekend shift possible. Their small apartment in Queens wasn't much, but he'd filled it with something far more valuable than fancy furniture. Books, hundreds of them, collected from library sales, thrift shops, and garage sales, lined makeshift shelves he'd built from old wood. Every surface held stacks of encyclopedias, language guides, science texts, and children's literature in multiple languages. Marco himself had only completed high school, dropping out of community college when Isabella became pregnant. But he fundamentally understood that education was the ladder his daughter would climb to reach the amazing heights he could only dream about. Lily was an extraordinary 6-year-old. While many kids her age still struggled with simple sight words, she devoured complex texts in several languages with an astonishing appetite. Her mind worked differently, processing patterns, sounds, and structures with a clarity that seemed almost magical. 3 months ago, she'd found a discarded Arabic textbook at a community book exchange. Something about the beautiful, flowing script captivated her instantly. She begged Marco to find her more resources. Though he couldn't afford expensive private lessons, he managed to find free audio recordings at the public library and dozens of free online video lessons. Every evening, while Marco prepared their simple dinner, Lily would sit at their tiny kitchen table, carefully tracing Arabic letters and whispering the sounds to herself until they felt as natural as breathing. Eleanor Vance had built her formidable reputation through 16-hour workdays and relentless, focused efficiency. At 30, she was the youngest CEO in her company's long history, an achievement that came with immense pressure from the board of directors. This deal with Sheikh Tariq's investment group represented 2 years of careful groundwork, thousands of emails, and 3 trips to the Middle East. If successful, it would secure her position and finally silence the quiet rumors that she was too young, too inexperienced. The contract would bring in $40 million in direct investment and create 300 new jobs in the city. Everything depended on this single afternoon meeting. Sheikh Tariq Almas commanded automatic respect everywhere he went. At 48, he'd built a vast empire spanning real estate, luxury resorts, and cutting-edge technology across the Middle East. But beneath the expensive robes and carefully trimmed beard beat the heart of a Bedouin boy who'd grown up listening to ancient poetry under the desert stars. He valued honor above sheer profit and deep relationships above simple transactions. The missing translator wasn't merely a frustrating inconvenience. In his eyes, it was a profound insult, a clear sign that these Americans didn't take him or his culture seriously enough to have a proper backup plan. The city outside pulsed with its usual Sunday symphony. Street vendors called out in a dozen different languages, Taxis aggressively honked their impatience, and somewhere nearby, a church bell competed with the call to prayer from a local mosque. This was New York City at its most vibrant, a place where different worlds constantly collided and, once in a great while, connected in miraculous ways. The conference room had been flawlessly prepared since dawn. Eleanor's assistant had arranged every detail, from the certified halal catering to the precisely cooled Arabian coffee served in golden-rimmed cups imported specifically for the occasion. The contracts lay ready on the table, their pages crisp and official, needing only signatures to finalize months of complex negotiation. The wall of glass offered a spectacular, sweeping view of the city, the kind of view designed to impress visitors and silently remind them of American ambition and power. But as the minutes ticked by without the translator, Eleanor watched her perfectly orchestrated plan instantly crumble. Tariq's patience snapped first, erupting like a sudden, fierce desert storm. He launched into a rapid stream of Arabic, his hands gesturing sharply as he spoke to his team of 4 advisors. They nodded grimly, efficiently gathering their papers, their faces masks of professional disappointment. Eleanor caught only one word she recognized from her limited Arabic studies. Kalas, finished. Her heart plummeted as she finally grasped the total magnitude of this failure. The board would absolutely destroy her at Monday's emergency meeting. 300 families wouldn't get the jobs she'd promised the mayor. Her entire future, everything she'd sacrificed and worked for, balanced on a razor's edge, tipping toward utter disaster. "Please, Sheikh Tariq." Eleanor stood, her voice steady despite the small tremor in her hands, her practiced composure barely holding together. "Give us just 30 minutes. I promise we will find another translator. This deal means everything to both our companies." Tariq paused at the door, his hand resting on the brushed steel handle. He turned back, his dark eyes holding both immense disappointment and a hint of pity. He spoke again in Arabic, slower this time, as if hoping someone might magically understand. His words carried the heavy weight of finality, the sound of a monumental opportunity walking away forever. Behind him, his advisors shifted uncomfortably, acutely aware of the millions of dollars dissolving in this single moment of cultural miscommunication. Marco had been polishing the water fountains in the hallway when he heard the raised voices penetrating the conference room's heavy doors. Sunday overtime paid double, money he desperately needed for Lily's upcoming school trip expenses and the winter coat she'd already outgrown. He'd brought her along because their regular babysitter was ill, settling her in the hall with her favorite books and a promise to finish by 3:00 p.m. so they could visit the park before sunset. But the sounds coming from the boardroom made him deeply nervous. Wealthy people arguing usually meant someone like him would end up blamed, or that he'd lose his job over circumstances totally beyond his control. He'd seen it happen too many times. Eleanor's assistant rushed past him, almost hitting his cleaning cart, her cell phone pressed to her ear. She was frantically calling translation services, all closed on Sunday or demanding 4-hour minimums for emergency calls that would arrive far too late. The irony wasn't lost on Marco. A city of 8 million people, and they couldn't find a single available Arabic speaker, yet he passed dozens of Arabic-speaking taxi drivers and food cart vendors every day on his way to work. Inside the room, Tariq's team had reached the door, their profound disappointment obvious. Eleanor's CFO was practically begging, offering to double their previous financial offer if they would just wait, if they would give them one last chance. But money wasn't the core issue. Respect was. Trust was. And both had been utterly shattered by this seemingly small oversight that revealed a deeper carelessness, a fundamental lack of preparation that Tariq found personally insulting. That's when Lily walked in. She moved with the unconscious confidence of a child who hadn't yet learned to doubt herself, who hadn't yet been taught that some rooms weren't meant for people like her. Her blonde curls caught the streaming afternoon light as she walked straight up to Sheikh Tariq, her small voice clear and surprisingly authoritative as she spoke in flawless classical Arabic. "Peace be upon you, honored uncle. Forgive my interruption, but I heard your words through the door. You said trust is like glass. Once broken, it cannot be mended. But my mother, before she went to heaven, told me that broken things can become art if we are brave enough to piece them together differently. Perhaps this moment isn't a breaking, but a reshaping." The room froze in absolute stillness. Eleanor's hand stopped halfway to her phone. Tariq's advisors exchanged stunned, wide-eyed glances. Even the city noise seemed to pause, acknowledging this impossible moment. The air itself seemed to crystallize around this tiny girl, speaking the language of ancient scholars and poets with the ease of a native speaker. Marco burst through the door seconds later, still clutching his mop, his face flushed with burning embarrassment and mounting fear. "Lily, I am so sorry, everyone. Please forgive the interruption. Come on, baby, we need to go right now." But Tariq raised his hand. His expression had completely transformed from anger to wonder, from dismissal to deep fascination. He knelt slowly to Lily's height, his knees creaking slightly, and responded in Arabic. "And peace be upon you, little scholar. Where did you learn to speak the language of poetry with such grace?" Lily smiled, the gap where she'd recently lost a tooth making her look even younger. Switching effortlessly to English for the benefit of the others, she then returned to Arabic for Tariq. "From books, uncle, and from listening to recordings. My father says listening is how we learn to understand hearts, not just words. I listen to Arabic every night before sleep. The language sings to me in my dreams." Eleanor finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. She's translating perfectly. This child is translating sophisticated Arabic. Perfectly." Tariq stood slowly, his eyes moving from Lily to Marco, taking in the work uniform stained with cleaning solutions, the tired eyes that spoke of double shifts and sacrificed sleep, and the protective way the janitor positioned himself near his daughter, like a guardian angel in a maintenance uniform. "This remarkable child is yours?" "Yes, sir." "I'm truly sorry for the disruption. We'll leave immediately. I know we don't belong here." "No?" Tariq's word carried the authority of someone accustomed to obedience, but also a warmth that hadn't been there before. "Stay, please." He turned to Eleanor, his entire demeanor completely shifted. "It seems God provides solutions in unexpected packages. If you are willing, I would like this young lady to help us continue our discussion. Sometimes the universe sends exactly what we need in forms we don't expect." Eleanor looked at Marco, truly seeing him clearly for the first time. Not just the invisible man who emptied her trash, but a father who'd somehow raised this astonishing child. A man who, despite working multiple jobs, had created a home environment where genius could flourish. "Would that be all right with you, Mr. Ramirez?" "Lily, honey, these are important people doing important work. We shouldn't interrupt." Lily tugged on her father's sleeve, her bright blue eyes earnest. "Daddy, Mrs. Vance needs help. Mama said we should always help when we can. She said that's how angels earn their wings on earth." The negotiation resumed with Lily perched on a chair between the two parties, her thin legs swinging slightly above the floor as she translated complex financial terms with the natural ease of someone discussing playground games. She didn't merely translate words, she conveyed tone, emotion, and the cultural context that even professional translators often missed. When Tariq made a witty joke about camels and venture capitalists that relied on Arabic wordplay, she laughed before translating, explaining the pun to the American team. Her genuine delight broke through Tariq's remaining reserve. She became not just a translator, but a bridge. Her innocence and deep earnestness dissolved the thick tension that had previously solidified between the two groups. "How does she know these technical terms?" Eleanor whispered to Marco, who had been convinced to sit nearby, though he perched nervously on the edge of his chair, as if ready to flee at any moment. "She reads everything she can get her hands on," he said, shaking his head in quiet amazement, his eyes never leaving his daughter. "Last week I found her with my old economics textbook from community college. She said it was interesting. She reads the business section of newspapers I bring home from recycling, medical journals from the hospital where I clean at night. She just absorbs everything." I never even knew she'd learned Arabic to this level. She must have been practicing while I was at work, using the computer at the library. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere shifted profoundly, from cold tension to warm collaboration, from deep suspicion to genuine partnership. Lily occasionally asked for clarification, her questions so insightful that both parties paused to consider angles they had previously overlooked. When the discussion turned to community impact, she shared her own observation. "My father works very hard, but he says honest work makes honest sleep. Maybe this deal can help more fathers sleep honestly. Maybe it can help children have more books." Tariq's eyes softened visibly, a sheen of moisture appearing at the corners as he listened to this American child speak his mother tongue. He heard echoes of his own daughter, Amira, who had been lost to leukemia 10 years ago. She would have been 16 now, perhaps as bright as this little one, perhaps changing the world with her own unique gifts. "Tell me, young Lily, who taught you our beautiful language?" "Nobody taught me exactly, Uncle. I found a book at the community center exchange. It had beautiful letters like art, like birds flying in formation. Then I found recordings at the library. Mrs. Chen, the librarian, helped me find websites where I could hear proper pronunciation. She said, 'Languages are like music. You have to train your ear before your tongue.'" She switched back to Arabic, her voice taking on a storytelling quality. "I practiced every day, sometimes while Daddy was sleeping after his night shift. Arabic sounds like music mixed with mathematics. Each word has a family root that connects to other words like a great tree with spreading branches. It's like solving puzzles made of sound and meaning and history all at once." Tariq laughed, a rich, booming sound that transformed his stern face into something grandfatherly and warm. "You understand the beauty of our language better than many native speakers who take it for granted. In my childhood in Saudi Arabia, I memorized the Quran by lamplight, learning that words carry not just meaning, but music, as you say. My grandfather taught me that Arabic was the language God chose for his final revelation, because it could hold multiple meanings in a single phrase, like light refracting through a prism. The contracts were reviewed line by line, with Lily clarifying nuances that even a professional translator might have missed. Her understanding went beyond mere vocabulary. She grasped the cultural weight behind certain phrases. When they reached a particularly complex passage about liability and force majeure, she paused, her small forehead furrowed in concentration. Sheikh Tariq is concerned that the insurance requirements might conflict with Sharia-compliant financing structures. He suggests adding a clause that allows for alternative arrangements that meet both American legal standards and Islamic financial principles. He says this would honor both traditions without compromising either. Eleanor's lawyer nodded appreciatively, making rapid notes. "That's actually brilliant. It protects both parties while respecting religious considerations. I wouldn't have thought of that angle." By 5 p.m., as the sun began its descent toward the Manhattan skyline, the primary agreement was finally reached. Tariq stood, extending his hand to Eleanor, the handshake firm and meaningful. Then, surprising everyone, he shook Marco's hand with equal respect. "You have raised a remarkable daughter, Mr. Ramirez. In my culture, we say that children are the flowers of paradise. Your flower blooms with exceptional beauty and rare fragrance." Marco's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Thank you, sir. She's all I have in this world. Her mother would be so proud of what she did today." "She is proud," Tariq said quietly, his voice carrying absolute conviction. "Mothers watch over their children from paradise. This I believe with all my heart. Your wife's spirit lives in this child's remarkable mind." Eleanor suggested they continue discussions over dinner to celebrate the breakthrough, but Marco hesitated, his discomfort obvious. "We should get home. We don't really fit in those kinds of places. Lily needs to do her homework for tomorrow." "Nonsense," Eleanor said firmly, surprising herself with her own forcefulness. "You're a part of this success, both of you. This deal wouldn't have happened without Lily." The restaurant Eleanor chose was elegant but not overly flashy, with a private dining room that allowed for comfortable conversation away from curious eyes. Marco sat stiffly at first, unsure which fork to use, overwhelmed by the number of glasses at his place setting. But Lily's natural ease and boundless curiosity helped him relax. She asked Tariq about Dubai's architecture, about the mathematics of building in the sand, and how skyscrapers could withstand desert storms. "Your daughter sees connections others miss," Tariq told Marco over the main course. "Has she been tested for giftedness?" "The school wanted to skip her ahead 3 grades, maybe more," Marco replied. "But I wanted her to have a normal childhood, friends her own age. I don't want her to grow up too fast, to miss the simple joys of being young." Eleanor leaned forward, genuinely interested. "It must be incredibly challenging raising her alone while working multiple jobs. How do you manage it all?" Marco's jaw tightened slightly, showing the pride of a man unaccustomed to pity or charity. "We manage. Lily understands our situation. She's never complained, never asked for things I couldn't provide. She knows that every book I bring home is a treasure, every library visit, an adventure. Daddy works harder than anyone in the whole world, Lily interjected, her voice fierce with loyalty. He says, money isn't wealth, love is wealth, time is wealth, knowledge is wealth. We're very wealthy in all the ways that matter. Over dessert, as Lily practiced writing Tariq's name in Arabic script on her napkin, adding decorative flourishes she'd learned from studying Islamic art online, Eleanor found herself studying Marco. His hands, rough from work, scarred from industrial cleaners, moved with surprising gentleness as he helped Lily with a difficult letter. His eyes, tired but kind, lit up whenever his daughter spoke. There was a dignity in his bearing that transcended his circumstances, a quiet nobility that had nothing to do with wealth or position. "Tell me about Lily's mother," Eleanor asked softly while Lily was showing Tariq her Arabic notebook filled with months of the painstaking practice. Marco's expression shifted, memories playing across his features like shadows and light. Isabella was a teacher, elementary school, second grade. She believed every child had a gift waiting to be discovered, a light waiting to shine. When she got sick, when we knew the cancer was winning, she spent her last months recording herself, reading to Lily, teaching her to love learning. She made hundreds of recordings, bedtime stories, lessons about kindness, songs in Spanish from her own childhood. She said knowledge would be Lily's inheritance, better than any money we could leave her. She said Lily would change the world one day. She sounds extraordinary. She was. Sometimes I see her in Lily's eyes, that same curiosity about everything, that same belief that the world is full of wonders waiting to be discovered, the same faith that goodness matters more than success. Eleanor touched his hand briefly, surprised by her own boldness. She sees that in you too, the way you've preserved her mother's dream, working yourself to exhaustion to keep Lily in books and learning materials. That's love in action. That's heroism without a cape. Their conversation was interrupted when Tariq stood to leave, his advisors gathering their things. "There's a cultural exhibition next Saturday at the Metropolitan Museum, Islamic Art and Science Through the Ages. I would be honored if you and Lily would attend as my personal guests. There will be scholars, artists, scientists, people Lily should meet." Marco shifted uncomfortably, acutely aware of the social gulf such an invitation represented. "That's very kind, but we wouldn't want to impose." "Please," Tariq interrupted, his tone sincere. "Lily has bridged two worlds today. Let me show her more of the world she's chosen to understand. And you, Mr. Ramirez, would honor me with your presence. A father who raises such a child is a man I want to know better. Perhaps we have more to learn from each other than this single afternoon has revealed." "I'll be attending too," Eleanor added quickly. "It would mean a lot to me if you came, both of you." Lily looked up at her father with eager eyes, pure hope shining in them. "Please, Daddy, Uncle Tariq says there will be astronomers showing how ancient Arabs mapped the stars. They'll have real astrolabes we can touch." Marco couldn't refuse that face. He never had been able to. "All right, we'll come." The week that followed brought unexpected turbulence, dark clouds gathering over their small triumph. Someone, likely a jealous competitor who'd lost the deal, leaked a twisted version of events to a gossip blog that specialized in corporate scandal. The headline screamed, "Janitor uses child to manipulate billionaire business deal. The dark side of corporate America." The story painted Marco as a scheming opportunist who'd coached his daughter to interrupt the meeting, angling for money and position. It suggested he'd been planning this con for months, and that Lily's language skills were part of an elaborate trick. The article went viral within hours, shared instantly by people who'd never met Marco, but were quick to judge, quick to believe the worst. Marco discovered the story when his supervisor showed him the printout Tuesday morning, warning that the building management was reviewing his employment, pending a full investigation. The whispers followed him through the hallways he'd cleaned faithfully for 7 years. People who'd never noticed him before now stared with suspicion or false sympathy. Some subtly moved their valuables when he entered their offices, as if he might steal them. Others offered fake smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The sheer weight of their collective judgment pressed down on him like a physical, heavy force. "Maybe we shouldn't go to the museum," Marco told Lily that Thursday evening, not wanting to fully explain why strangers were suddenly cruel, why kids at school were repeating nasty things they'd heard their parents say. Maybe it's better if we just stay home this weekend? But you promised, Lily said, her disappointment clear and heartbreaking. And Mrs. Vance called. She said it's important we come. She said not to believe what people are saying. Eleanor had indeed called several times, leaving increasingly urgent messages. She'd hired a private investigator to dig into the source of the leak, quickly discovering connections to a rival firm that had desperately wanted Tariq's investment. She'd also learned more about Marco, his honorable discharge from the military after serving 2 tours, his wife's teaching awards, and the scholarship fund set up in her memory, and his perfect employment record despite taking time off for every one of Lily's school events. Every single detail painted a picture of deep integrity under pressure, of a man doing his absolute best in impossible circumstances. She also confronted her own assumptions and blindness. How many times had she passed Marco in the hallways without truly seeing him? How many other invisible workers kept her world running smoothly while she focused solely on spreadsheets and profit margins? The revelation of her own casual ignorance stung more than she expected. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, perfectly matching Marco's somber mood. He pressed his one good suit, bought second-hand for Isabella's funeral 4 years ago, and polished Lily's school shoes until they shone like mirrors. She wore her favorite dress, blue like her eyes, with the small golden bracelet that had been her mother's cherished quinceañera gift. The museum hall was packed with New York's elite, people who summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. Marco felt every stare, heard every whisper behind manicured hands. Some recognized him from the viral article, their eyes sliding over him with contempt or cold curiosity. He desperately wanted to leave, to retreat to the safety of invisibility. But Lily held his hand tightly, her excitement unwavering as she examined the displays of astrolabes and illuminated manuscripts, reading the Arabic descriptions as easily as the English ones. Tariq found them near an exhibit on mathematical innovations, standing before a display about al-Khwarizmi, the father of algebra. "Marco, I heard about the lies being spread," Tariq said, his voice quiet but firm. "In my country, we have a saying, the dogs bark, but the caravan moves on. Pay them no mind. Truth has a way of revealing itself." "It's affecting my job, my reputation," Marco confessed, feeling the panic rise. "Maybe bringing Lily here was a mistake. Maybe I should have kept her hidden, safe from all this attention. The only mistake would be dimming your daughter's light because of shadow-minded people," Tariq countered, his voice carrying conviction born from his own personal struggles. "I have lived long enough to recognize truth from fabrication, to know genuine goodness from calculated manipulation. You are an honorable man raising an exceptional child under difficult circumstances. That threatens people who have achieved less with more, who need to believe that success only comes from privilege." The exhibition featured a presentation space where scholars would discuss various artifacts. Unexpectedly, the scheduled speaker had fallen ill with food poisoning. The curator, knowing Tariq was present, asked if he might say a few words instead. Tariq agreed, but with one condition. "I would like young Lily Ramirez to join me. She understands something about Arabic culture that many scholars miss. Its heart, its soul, its living breath." The murmur through the crowd was immediate, some recognizing the name from the scandal. Marco wanted desperately to refuse, to shield Lily from the harsh spotlight and judgment, but she squeezed his hand. "Mama said, we shouldn't hide our light under bushels. She said that's fear talking, not wisdom." On the small stage, Lily stood beside Tariq, dwarfed by his imposing presence but undiminished, her chin raised with quiet confidence. She waited patiently as he spoke about the golden age of Islamic science, about the poets and mathematicians who saw no division between art and arithmetic, between faith and reason. Then he nodded to her. Lily stepped to the microphone, which had to be lowered significantly. She spoke first in Arabic, her young voice carrying surprising authority. "In the name of the compassionate, the merciful. Language is not just words. It is a bridge between hearts, a key to unlock doors of understanding, a light that shows us we are more alike than different." She switched to English, her words careful but confident. "My daddy cleans buildings. He works very hard so I can have books, so I can learn, so I can grow. Some people think that makes us less important, less worthy of respect. But I learned Arabic from library books and free websites because my daddy taught me that knowledge doesn't care about money. It only cares about hunger, hunger to learn, to understand, to connect with other human beings across the beautiful differences that make us unique. The room was silent, save for the sound of rain against the museum skylights. Lily continued, alternating between Arabic and English. When I translated for Sheikh Tariq and Mrs. Vance, I wasn't just changing words from one language to another. I was helping hearts speak to each other. That's what language does. It reminds us that we're all human, all hoping for better tomorrows, all hurting from our losses, all healing through connection and compassion. She looked directly at the audience, some of whom had been whispering about her father just minutes before. My mama died when I was 3, but she left me voices, recordings of her reading, teaching, singing lullabies in Spanish. She spoke English and Spanish and filled our home with both. Now I speak those in Arabic too. Every language I learn is a way of keeping her alive, of proving that love transcends everything, even death. Every word I translate is a small prayer for understanding in a world that needs more bridges and fewer walls. Her small voice grew stronger. Sheikh Tariq builds tall buildings that touch the sky. Mrs. Vance builds businesses that create jobs for families. My daddy builds something too. He builds tomorrow by making today clean and safe for everyone. That's noble work. That's necessary work. And if a janitor's daughter can learn Arabic and help make a $40 million deal happen, then maybe we need to stop deciding who matters based on their job title or bank account. Maybe we need to see each other with clearer eyes and kinder hearts. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats, 4, 5. Then someone began clapping, an elderly professor from Columbia. Then another joined, a diplomat from the UN. The applause built like thunder rolling across the city, people rising to their feet, some wiping their eyes. Marco stood frozen, tears streaming down his face as Lily walked calmly back to him, taking his hand as naturally as breathing, as if she hadn't just challenged an entire room of powerful people to examine their prejudices. Tariq took the microphone again, his voice thick with emotion. This child speaks truth. We adults often forget. I came to America angry about a missing translator, ready to walk away from a deal 2 years in the making. I am leaving grateful for finding something more valuable. A reminder that wisdom has no age, no class, no single language. The deal I signed with Miss Vance's company will include a provision I am adding right now. A scholarship fund for children like Lily, whose minds hunger for knowledge but whose circumstances limit access. It will be called the Lily Ramirez Foundation for Linguistic Studies. He looked directly at the journalists present, his tone shifting to steel. And let me be crystal clear about Mr. Marco Ramirez. Any suggestion that he manipulated this situation is not just false, but insulting to everything I stand for. I have met presidents and princes, CEOs, and celebrities. Few have impressed me with their integrity as much as this man who works 2 jobs to fill his daughter's world with books instead of buying himself comfort. Anyone who continues to spread lies about him will answer to my legal team. I have already instructed them to pursue defamation charges against the original source of these rumors. Eleanor stepped forward, having made a decision that would reshape her company's culture. I want to add something. Effective Monday, Mr. Ramirez will be offered a position as our new community outreach coordinator. We need someone who understands what real work means, what real struggle looks like. Someone who can help us build bridges, not just with international partners, but with the communities we claim to serve. This isn't charity. This is recognition that we've been blind to talent in our own building. How many other children like Lily are out there, brilliant but overlooked because their parents clean our offices instead of sitting in them? Marco started to protest, overwhelmed by the sudden dramatic change. I don't have a degree. I don't know anything about people, Eleanor interrupted. You know about dignity in difficult circumstances. You know about raising hope in hopeless situations. That's what we need. The rest can be learned. The following weeks brought rapid, powerful change, tectonic shifts in their small world. The scandal story was retracted after legal pressure and the revelation of corporate sabotage. The journalist who wrote it issued a public apology, admitting he hadn't verified his source. Marco accepted the new position after Lily convinced him it was what Isabella would want, that it was a chance to help other families like theirs. He insisted on starting part-time, wanting to prove himself. But within a month, his insights into community needs had shaped 3 new initiatives that Eleanor's board praised as innovative and essential. Lily continued attending her regular school, but spent afternoons at a prestigious language institute, her scholarship covering not just Arabic, but Mandarin and French. She became something of a sensation, interviewed by education magazines and invited to speak at conferences, though Marco worked hard to keep her grounded, reminding her that gifts came with responsibilities, that privilege, even earned privilege, meant helping others climb the same ladder. Eleanor found herself drawn to their small family, joining them for Saturday library trips and Sunday dinners in their small Queens apartment. Her relationship with Marco evolved slowly, built on mutual respect and shared values rather than the superficial attractions of her previous relationships. She learned to see the city through his eyes, not just glass towers, but the people who cleaned them, not just deals, but the lives they affected. She discovered the beauty of corner bodegas and community gardens, of families gathering in public parks because their apartments were too small for hosting, of children doing homework in laundromats while their parents worked third shifts. Tariq visited monthly, becoming an unexpected grandfather figure to Lily. He taught her classical Arabic poetry, the verses of Rumi and Al-Mutanabi, while she taught him American idioms that made him laugh, explaining why Americans said piece of cake when they meant easy, or break a leg when they meant good luck. Their friendship, built on a moment of crisis resolved by a child's courage, became a model for the broader partnership between their companies. Featured in business journals as an example of successful cross-cultural collaboration. 3 months after the museum event, they gathered again at the harbor where Isabella's ashes had been scattered years before. The autumn sun painted the water gold as Tariq poured traditional mint tea from a silver pot he'd brought from Dubai, a family heirloom his grandmother had used. "In my culture," he said, watching the steam rise from the glasses, "we believe that some meetings are written in the stars before we are born, that God puts people in our path exactly when we need them, not a moment before or after." Lily, now more confident but still sweetly earnest, responded in Arabic. "Mama used to say something similar. She said angels sometimes forget to wear their wings, so they look like regular people. But if you pay attention, you can see them anyway. You can see them in the janitor who makes sure children have safe schools, in the teacher who stays late to help struggling students, in the businessman who remembers that deals are really about people." Marco pulled his daughter close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, still baby sweet despite her growing wisdom. "What do you see when you look at us, little one?" She looked around their small circle, her father, who sacrificed everything for her education, Eleanor, who'd learned to see beyond surfaces and was slowly becoming part of their family, Tariq, who'd found healing for his grief in mentoring her. Lily smiled with the quiet wisdom of a child who'd known loss and found love again. "I see a family," she said simply. First in English, then Arabic, then Spanish for her mother's spirit. Different kinds of family, but family nonetheless, the kind you choose, the kind that chooses you back. As the sun descended toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of rose and amber, they sat in comfortable silence. The city hummed its eternal song around them, millions of lives intersecting in ways both visible and hidden. Lily pulled out a small notebook, writing Arabic letters that looked like birds taking flight, adding her own verse to the endless poem of human connection. She was working on a children's book, a story about a girl who spoke the language of hearts, illustrated with Arabic calligraphy. She was learning to paint. Marco watched his daughter write, thinking of Isabella, feeling her presence in the salt breeze and the golden light. He'd spent 3 years believing he was just surviving, just getting through each day for Lily's sake. But here, surrounded by unlikely friends who'd become family, watching his daughter bridge worlds with the power of words and the purity of her heart, he understood that survival had transformed into something more. They were thriving, they were building, they were proving that sometimes the most extraordinary moments come from the most ordinary people.